good afternoon and welcome to the second broadcast of Mirror Darkly. Tonight, or this afternoon's broadcast, will be on what JP suggested last week, mirrors and ninjas.
Got to have the ninjas.
So we'll see what we can do with that.
Yeah.
So why did you want to talk about mirrors and ninjas?
Well, as I recall, Ruth wanted to talk about mirrors historically in the Bible times, and
well, actually, it was about Alice Through the Looking Glass, because
Right.
we're talking about how when the Bible says we see us through a mirror darkly or a glass darkly, and then I thought, Alice Through the Looking Glass, but I never read I started reading the book, but it was a little far out for where I was, I think, developmentally at the time. And so I never finished reading. I got through maybe a couple of chapters and I was like, okay, this is too much.
So I recall you can get it for free on Kindle.
Probably could.
Yeah.
But right now I'm in the middle of reading Steve Scalise's book to my mom. So free plug, good book.
Okay.
So, but anyway, so that's where the mirror thing came from.
and
Was
ninjas is
wondering
just
if it was like
JP's randomness.
You like
Yes.
ninjas?
He likes
Yeah.
ninjas.
So what can you tell me about ninjas?
They never really existed the way we imagine them.
Well, certainly not the way they show up in anime.
Yeah.
Were they
can't act.
turtles?
They can't actually be invisible. They don't actually fly.
And they're not mutated.
They're not mutated.
There's an interesting fact about ninjas that
They were covert agents and
assassins,
Mercenaries, feudal
spies,
Japan,
mercenaries,
assassin spies.
What's
And so
interesting
they were
is
sneaky, but
when we think,
Whoa, sorry.
can't actually be invisible.
I have to mute that because I've got it to do the thing, the
Okay,
social media. Sorry.
that's all right.
when we
I think
think
we had
of,
that mistake last week.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I'll learn.
when we think of
You're running joke.
feudal Japan, we think of samurais, we think of honor, we think of men who will do anything for honor and protect their honor. During the
Yeah, we bombed that
Sengoku,
out Japan in the
yeah,
Second World War, thankfully.
during the Sengoku Jidai period of the Warring States period of Japan, it was actually very common to have samurai break their bonds and turn against their masters and switch sides and work as double agents. Especially the higher ranked they go, they started playing the political game, and the people that samurai lords could depend on, the ones that they could turn to and trust to stay loyal to the money that they gave them, were actually the ninjas. The ninjas were actually capable of more loyalty and honor in a lot of cases than the samurai that they served. So I've always been fascinated by ninjas ever since the turtles, and so when the lull in conversation comes up, I say
Ninjas.
because I think that the world needs more
about
them.
them.
Okay. What would the world be like with more ninjas, do you suppose? This is unbridled inquiry. I'm inquiring
I
unbridledly.
think we'd have more pizza.
I'm not an aficionado of
We
the
have a
turtles.
whole box of them under the bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I was a kid.
Funny.
There's a technique that ninja used. They didn't actually like to fight. They avoided conflict wherever possible, and there was an old trick that they had, that they would carry small bags of money, and they were carried in old rotting fabric. And when they were accosted on the road by highwaymen, they would take these bags out and throw them at the ground, and the bag would burst and coins would go everywhere. And in their greed, the highwaymen would go after the coins, and that would give the ninja a chance to book it.
Escape.
Yeah. So, I think that their pragmatism and their unwillingness to do things that were unnecessary. I think the world could use a little bit more of that.
Well, pragmatism would be useful.
Yeah.
So figuring out what works and go with that. So what did you want to do about mirrors?
I don't know. I don't know what's pinging on your thing. You should silence it. I'm
Yes, I
inviting
will.
people to a watch party.
Ah,
So I'm just people on my Facebook page that I think would be interested. I'm sending them an invitation. So
I actually, in preparation for this episode, I actually did a bit of research into mirrors historically. I
okay.
knew that the mirrors that I described last week were what poor people used,
Right.
which was a handle with a polished round piece of metal
Mhm.
that was usually mostly flat.
Yeah.
The higher ranking Romans would have was a layer of lead
Mhm.
with a small bit of polished silver metal and then molten glass put over that. But Roman glassmakers didn't know how to make clear glass at the time. They didn't know how to remove the impurities.
Right.
So not only would you have the mirror part not
Be perfect.
be perfect, but the glass actually had a lot of impurities in it that we couldn't see through,
Mhm.
which I thought was an interesting metaphor for our
Yes.
walk with Christ, is that
Yes.
the things that we see, our impurities actually block our view of how things are.
Yeah.
And then I ran across an interesting story from France.
Mhm.
And it was a noble woman, talking about how she obtained this mirror. And at this period in France, mirrors were highly valued. They were the province of the nobility. This is during Louis XVI's reign.
Okay.
And what would happen is they finally figured out a way to put clear glass with a silver backing on it, and they got clear pictures. And so this one woman, she had a piece of land that grew wheat.
Mhm.
And she said, what is this land doing for me other than growing this useless wheat? So I traded the wheat for a mirror, and I got the better deal. They value these mirrors so highly that they'd be willing to trade land, arable, useful land,
For a mirror.
for a mirror,
Huh.
just so she could see herself more clearly.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. And of course, with even the best of mirrors, you're still not getting a completely accurate picture of
Well,
yourself.
no, it's all backwards.
It's all backwards.
Mhm.
Now, human beings are bilaterally symmetrical, but not perfectly so.
No.
If you ever take Photoshop or GIMP and take a person's face and split it and then flop it,
Mhm.
they look funny.
Well, you just take your glasses off your face, you put them on the table, and they rock because your ears aren't at the same level.
Yeah. And my
And in
nose
order
is
to get-
actually on crooked a little bit.
And in order to get
I think I sneezed when
them
God
to
was
sit
gluing
level
it
with
on.
my eyes.
So,
I have a lot of friends to sort through to invite, so that's what I'm doing.
oh, is that what you're doing? Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the concept of a mirror is actually kind of an interesting one in human history.
Yeah.
The ability, our desire to look at ourselves.
Mhm. Well, we are self-absorbed. I mean, think about how often people take selfies.
Yeah.
It's just continuation of the same thing. There's nothing that we are more interested in than ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we have this object in our
Uh-huh.
pockets that hooks us up to the sum of all human knowledge.
Mhm.
And
And
the biggest use of it is to take pictures of cats
Mhm.
and ourselves.
And food.
or ourselves looking like cats.
We're taking pictures of what we're eating
Yeah,
or have eaten
Yes.
afterwards.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, our cell phones in a lot of ways have become the new mirror.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
more
And of
accurate.
course, with those, they can actually flip it so it's giving you an accurate picture of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember saying in the earlier generations of the phone, when they started having cameras on them, I was like, they ought to like create an app where you can see yourself like a mirror. And then they invented the selfie camera, and the need for that app went away because you just look in your selfie camera. I use my phone camera for two main reasons. One, to check like my hair, my face if I'm going somewhere, and then I also use it to look at text that's too small. I use my camera and I stretch it out so I can read small print.
Mm-hmm.
So because I have old lady eyes.
It's
So
a great magnifier.
It is a great magnifier.
We use them for plans sometimes when things are a little too small.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Miniatures painters. One of my big hobbies is painting small 25, 30 millimeter toy soldiers. And a lot of times miniatures painters will use macro functions on their cameras to get an idea of how smooth their blends have gotten. And it's literally impossible to see that close when you're holding it up to yourself. You actually need the technology to get close enough to tell you how good you did with your brush.
The magnifying glass works.
Yeah, they would.
There was
But you already
actually
have a phone.
One.
Yeah, there was a competition recently on a Facebook group that I belong to. That it was extreme close-ups of your work. The idea was to see how
well you
how well your painting holds up to extreme scrutiny. So.
Got through them all. Stephanie Patterson joined us. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie.
So,
yes, I can see on the thing there.
yes,
Little green announcement.
yes. So anyway,
Okay.
so, and Dennis Moyers says hi. Greg Yost says hi, guys.
Hi, Greg.
And my cousin Steve says hi, cuz. Hi, Steve. So for those of
Okay.
you that are just joining us, this is a Mirror Darkly Unbridled Inquiry. And tonight we're talking about mirrors and ninjas. And
It may get on to some other
yes,
topics too.
because we do tend to wander about. So if you have any questions about ninjas or mirrors or any other topic that you would like to present to our panel, feel free. I'm doing the social media, so it'll show up on either the computer in front of me or on my phone. So anyway, so, oh, wow, we have a ton of people joining. So, no, oh, okay. Oh, so Greg was saying he used his camera to photo a registration mark. It's a work thing, and tell JP I said hi. Greg said hi, JP.
Oh.
So I use my camera for everything. My kids' library books, so I have evidence that they turned them in. I line up the library books so I can see all the titles. I take a picture. I flip them over so we can see all the barcodes. And I take a picture so that if they say, I turned my book in, I'll be like, yeah, no, you didn't. So, and they know better than to turn it in without me taking a picture of it, because then they're on their own. It's their word against librarians. So, but yeah, it's nice having phones. But I have like so many pictures, and a lot of them are just junk pictures of notes to myself because I lose paper. So I just, now we're getting off onto talking about
Cameras.
cell phone cameras.
But they're modern mirrors.
They are.
They are.
That's what they are. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 21st century mirrors.
And fast record keeping devices.
And it's a modern form of recording things as well.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
the one project I was on where we weren't allowed to have cameras, I felt handicapped. Like, wait, it can't prove that this is the work that we did today.
And you couldn't even have like a normal digital camera?
No, nothing.
Wow.
No cameras.
This was with the
This
defense
is-
contractor.
Yeah.
So did you actually use a rock and chisel to record things, or?
No, we were allowed to write things down on paper.
Oh,
but-
okay.
And there was a photographer that was allowed to come in and take pictures for us.
Oh, okay.
And then they could get approved to be released to us. But it was
Okay.
like,
Mm-hmm.
he would come once a month.
Oh,
Ah,
So,
Just as a quick aside, am I blocking Lori when I lean
No.
forward?
nope.
no,
You're
we're
good.
perfectly clear.
Cool.
I can see all four of us nicely.
Yeah, much better than
Much
last
better
week.
than last week. It's
don't
a
worry,
lot,
you could see
much clearer
JP and
image.
half of Robin.
Yes.
So,
Assuming people want to see us, then they actually
Yes.
can this week. Yes,
They don't have to look at the TV if they
that's
don't.
true. They don't. Okay, so difficulty with ancient mirrors was their impreciseness. In fact,
Lack of
they
clarity.
lacked clarity. You had to look past a lot of junk.
well, I said last week when you were talking about the mirrors, the polished metal ones, that's what we put in bathrooms at schools because you don't want glass where children are unsupervised. So, you know, they just get this, if they have anything at all, they get just the piece of metal. So teachers are allowed to have real mirrors because they don't let us have knives, but they let us have mirrors. So when we used to get metal utensils in the teacher's lounge, we'd get forks and spoons, and there were no knives. I was like, yeah, they don't trust us. But I carry my own now. I have a baggie of plastic utensils, so I carry knives. So just watch out. Better listen to my lessons because I'm packing heat. Little
Shank-
plastic.
Shanks them.
Plastic
No.
knives are so sharp.
Yeah. I'll butter knife them to death.
So with passage of time, we have better mirrors, better technology.
And so the
and get
scripture,
closer to the truth.
right? But but that makes the scripture harder to understand
Yes, it does.
because we don't get.
Yeah, well, see, that's a metaphor that's being used, or an analogy. It's
Right.
not. And
But
so
the analogy doesn't make
it
as
doesn't
much
make as
sense
much
to
sense.
us.
We have to translate it into more modern
Mhm.
framework.
Or reproduce the old.
Yeah.
When I was in sixth
Well,
grade,
like in
I got
terms
to
of social media and how poor it is for giving us the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I was in sixth grade, I got to go to the Jewish University in on the west side, and we were there for an archaeology field trip, and I actually got to hold one of those mirrors, one of those old bronze mirrors, and it kind of blew me away because I'm holding something that's 2,000 years old, and I'm 12.
They make you put gloves on?
Well, then if it's bronze, it's not even the right color. Like, because when you, like when I look in a mirror, even in just a silver metal mirror, I can tell what my skin tone is pretty generally.
Depending on the lighting.
Right. But if you're looking at a bronze mirror, it's not going to even tell you really what your skin tone is. That's really, like putting on makeup. That's not a
You
good
look
thing.
jaundiced the whole time.
You would. Yeah.
You can kind of tell where the lines of your makeup are. So like with you've got your eyeliner. You can kind of tell, make sure that your eyes go about halfway. You could kind of tell that your lipstick didn't go off on your chin, but I mean.
But you wouldn't be able to tell color, like did you blend it right or anything like that.
But that explains why so many people who used makeup had someone else apply it for them.
Yes, and they were wealthy too, so
Yes.
yeah, they had.
Poor people would not be able to do
Well,
it.
women's blouses are buttoned the opposite way than men's because women had someone dress them. Wealthy women had someone dress them. So if you're dressing someone, the buttons are the right way to what men would see dressing themselves. So
Yeah, the buttons are manipulated by the right hand.
yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, we take it for granted that the buttons are manipulated by the right hand,
Yeah.
but women, the buttons are manipulated by the
Left
Yeah.
hand.
So Greg brought up a topic, said he was thinking about the uses of mirrors for space photos. And well, like for example, the Hubble,
Yes.
which a lady just died recently that was like really significant to the working on the Hubble. I'm totally unclear of the facts, so somebody wants to look it up and tell us about it. But yeah, she died recently, but she had something to do with the Hubble telescope. But anyway, when it went up there, they realized that it had vision issues.
Yes, it was not quite put together properly. They didn't test it before they sent it up.
So
And so they didn't notice the flaw until they took the first picture and thought, uh-oh.
we need to fit this thing for glasses.
Which is what they did, essentially.
Right.
And it worked.
Nancy Grace Roman, a renowned astronomer who led the drive to launch the Hubble Space Telescope, died on December 25th at the age of 93, according to the Associated Press. Roman was nicknamed the Mother of Hubble for her work on the pioneering telescope, which launched in 1990. She joined NASA's headquarters office soon after the agency's founding in 1958. She was the first chief of astronomy drawn to the offer of having the leeway to create such a pivotal department from scratch.
Good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Now, why was it important to have a telescope in orbit?
Oh, I know this one.
Thinking in terms of
You don't have all the atmosphere issues.
Right, what
It's
does the
out of space,
atmosphere
not
do?
clear. Well, it distorts it, and you get the ones on the planet. If you have a lot of light pollution, for one, that's why usually telescopes are out where it's darker,
Like in
with the
Atacama.
exception of like Griffith Observatory, which
Well, it used to be dark
right?
there.
So now it's
The
a
city grew
tourist
up around
attraction,
it,
right?
yes.
But
Palomar is having the same problem now.
right, but you get, well, for one, you have clouds that come over. You get the distortion of the atmosphere, and
Because
so
the
it makes it-
atmosphere makes things move around, so
Right.
you don't get as clear image, although they've found a way to get around that.
Ooh, talk about your visit to the one in Tucson. My uncle took you.
That was a number of years ago.
You don't remember much about it?
No, we
It
went
was
to
a long time ago
Kit
because my aunt
Peak,
was still alive. That's right, Kit Peak Observatory.
Kit Peak Observatory in Arizona. All the imaging now is done with same kind of technology that's in your cameras for taking pictures,
Wow.
CCDs, not film. And everything shows up immediately on a computer screen. Used to be in times past that they would have to take all the pictures at night with film, and then they would develop the film the next day and find out whether or not they'd actually seen anything. This way they can find out whether or not they're getting a good picture or not right away, so they're not wasting the time.
So
and
their
they can take
kids,
video.
And then take video.
so the kids be knocking on the door, Dad, I have to go to the bathroom. Wait, I'm still developing the film from work last night.
Yeah. So it's a lot more efficient. It was, of course, this was back in the 90s that I was there, and so the computer screens they were using were the old CRTs and all that, and the computers are much slower. So, I mean, the technology has advanced considerably even since then, but it was quite remarkable even at that.
It'd be cool if you could go now to
See the
peek and see how
changes.
it's different. Yeah.
I'm sure it's changed a lot. The other problem with the atmosphere is that it absorbs certain wavelengths of light that you wouldn't be able to see from the ground at all.
Wait, say that again.
The atmosphere absorbs
atmosphere
certain
does,
wavelengths
okay.
of light, and so the only way to get images of certain things in those wavelengths is to be above the atmosphere.
It's kind of like the glass with the impurities in it.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, the air actually filters out certain things you would never be able to see. So there are all sorts of advantages to being above the atmosphere. Although, as I was saying, with modern instruments, they have adaptive optics, so they can at least make allowance for the way the atmosphere distorts images. That's fixable now. And so ground-based instruments can give you as much clarity pretty much as what Hubble can. And so there's still reasons for building ground-based instruments. They're building enormously large ones now. They're building a new one in Hawaii. They're building a new one in Chile. They're just enormous. You look it up and find out how big they are.
Yeah, the one in
one's
Chile,
like
I
30,
believe, is
30 meters.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it's really big.
It's
It uses adaptive optics.
It's supposed to be the biggest one in the world when it's completed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something like 14,000 feet up or something like that.
Yeah, it's very high atmosphere.
Insanely high.
Yeah,
in
very high.
In a desert.
In a desert, very dry, good seeing.
Yeah.
And then with the adaptive optics, so they'll get really good images. And then the Jack Webb telescope, which keeps getting pushed back when it's supposed to launch, that is supposed to sort of be a replacement for Hubble, although it'll be dealing with different wavelengths of light than what Hubble does. So it's not
So
exactly.
they're still going to be using the Hubble?
As long as it lasts.
Oh, okay. Does it have a...
Well, the gyroscopes slowly deteriorate,
Oh.
and so that makes it impossible to keep it pointed in the right direction.
Oh.
And so unless they can go back up and replace the gyros, then eventually it won't be usable anymore. So
And they can't really go up and do anything to it because we don't have space shuttles anymore.
right. And the Crew Dragon and the Boeing Starliner, neither of them are really designed to be able to do that kind of work. But at least it's at an altitude where, should they decide to spend the money to do it, they could probably, keep it working. Jack Webb telescope, though, will be positioned in such a place it'll be very hard to get to. It's not designed to be serviceable, at least not with current space technology.
Interesting.
Which is a little bit scary. But it's considerably larger than Hubble.
Well, Greg had
Kind of
to
exciting.
head off to work, incidentally.
Oh,
So
okay.
he said, gotta go to work, love you guys. So I'm sure he's already off to work. So
Yes.
I said, have fun. Texted him. So,
Okay.
but okay, well, since we have a little break in the action, I'm going to do a
Yes.
couple little plugs. A Mirror
Okay.
Darkly, Unbridled Inquiry is brought to you by Quartz Hill School of Theology. You can find us online at www.theology.edu. Classes are offered online as well as in person. And Quartz Hill School of Theology is housed at Quartz Hill Community Church, and we're a local body of believers who believe in loving God and loving people. We're located at 51st Street West and Avenue K in Quartz Hill, California, and we have morning worship every Sunday morning beginning at 11 a.m. Our services combine traditional, if I learned how to read, it would help, as well as contemporary worship with Bible-centered teaching. We have Sunday school for all ages, and we have prayer meeting on Wednesdays. So if you're in the area, join us. The church has a Facebook page, Quartz Hill Community
Of course,
Church.
they should know that since they're on the
Yes.
Facebook page.
Not necessarily. They're
Oh.
on mine. So a lot of these are my friends.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the church's website is littlebluechurch.org. So
one of the URLs.
one of the many domains we have. So, but that's the easiest one to remember, littlebluechurch.org. So anyway, so, all right. So moving along with mirrors, you have more to say about mirrors?
Well, even with astronomical mirrors, they do distort. That is, they reverse the image, just like a normal mirror does. And so, for instance, if you see particularly older pictures of astronomical observations, the pictures are actually upside down from the way the object actually is, because that's the way those kind of mirrors, they're curved, reverse the image.
Well, even our eye is that type of a mirror.
Yes.
And the picture is upside down and your brain fixes it.
Yeah, they've actually done experiments where they purposely put glasses on people that make things look upside down, and then eventually your brain fixes it. And of course, then when you take the glasses off,
your brain has to fix it.
Oh, wow. That's like scary.
It takes about a week to adjust either direction.
Wow. That would be frightening. Like, what if it doesn't switch back? That's scary. But, well, really, what you have in your eye is not really a mirror, it's a lens.
Well, you have a lens, but it hits the retina, and that's where the light receptors are.
All right, so that would be a mirror.
So it's like the CCDs.
Okay.
CCDs imitate to some extent what your retina does.
Oh, okay.
They were inspired by the human eye, actually.
Yeah. So the light hitting the CCD is converted into electricity that then is interpreted by your device.
Okay.
Just like your brain interprets the electrical impulse from the retina getting hit by. You do not have direct apperception of reality.
No.
It's all mediated through your senses.
It's all ninjas and mirrors. Which brings us back to our topic.
That's right.
You see ninjas through a mirror darkly.
Yeah. One of the issues that is always fun to talk about are the epistemological issues.
And what does epistemology mean for
anybody else know?
You got to define your big words.
How do we know what we know?
Okay.
That is, we operate with a lot of presuppositions, things that we just assume are so that we can't prove. And so one of the assumptions is that we assume the universe around us is the way what we're actually experiencing. That is, that we're not living in the matrix.
Right. But people will argue that that is not the case.
Yeah, there's no way of proving.
Right.
It's just that it's a reasonable assumption to make that, we're getting, all things being equal, an accurate presentation of the universe around us, that the universe is objectively real, and that we are experiencing a more or less accurate picture of it.
Well, that's kind of where the horror.
But that's an assumption.
That's kind of where the horror of the Matrix comes in. Was that it suggested that not only do you not know what's going on, you can't know what's going on.
Right. You could just be a brain in a vat being manipulated by evil monsters or demons or whatever.
Yeah.
So, which is an old concept.
Is it Descartes?
Yeah, Descartes is the one that first proposed that you could be in a simulation, and that some mad scientist or demon is making you imagine all of this, and there'd be no way of knowing. And you might be the only thing that there is in the universe, just you, and we're all just simulations. Explain a lot, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so this may be totally off, but there may be something
We're off.
here. No, off from this particular topic right now. So The Good Place.
Yes.
Does the show The Good Place? Does that because No,
The Good Place is more like the Truman Show.
Okay. All right.
It's nice that we have these popular things that have given us a way of talking about this stuff that people can understand what in the world we're talking about.
Touchstones? Touchstones?
Yes. It used to be, when I first started teaching, The Matrix hadn't come out yet. Truman Show hadn't come out yet. And so trying to talk about some of these issues was really difficult because you had nothing that the students could tie into. Now it's a lot easier. That's part of our popular culture now instead of just being part of the esoteric philosophical stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so that was the Good Place was no help there. And we don't want to do any spoiler alerts too, in case people are behind on their TiVos.
Yes, and if they haven't
Which is like
watched
a
The Good
thing now.
Place, then they really need to get caught up on that.
Yeah, you got to watch The Good Place. It's really good.
Interesting.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not the sort of show you would anticipate seeing on network television. They're dealing with philosophy, ethics, theology, all on a fairly high level.
Mm-hmm. And
they do a good job with it too.
Well, it's sort of like Big Bang Theory though,
Yes.
because I know it's funny because they'll be having some science conversation. I'll look at him, I'll be like, "Is that a thing?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's a thing." I'm like, "Okay," and I just enjoy the ride, kind of like a surfer on a wave. You can't really control the wave. You don't really know how the wave works, but you know how to ride it. That's me.
Well, the advantage that both the shows have is they have experts that are behind the scenes helping them not screw things up.
Well, they have a guy that writes on their whiteboards for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So I'm not that guy.
they can't get very far off topic because one of the actresses is
Actually, a
actually
scientist.
the scientist
Yeah.
that
This
she
is true,
portrays.
too.
It's her actual real.
Yeah, that's
Training,
her real
right.
training.
Which one is that?
Maya
Oh,
Bialik.
She plays Amy.
Amy.
Fawcett.
Farrah Fowler.
Farrah Fawcett.
Oh, very Fawcett.
The
Amy
one with the
Farrah Fowler.
glasses that is in a relationship
Well,
with.
the brunette.
Sheldon. She's married to Sheldon.
Okay.
Sheldon.
Well, at the end, she's
And-
married to Sheldon. You haven't
yes.
seen that part.
Oh,
He doesn't
Spoiler alert.
watch it much.
okay.
Anyway, yeah, she's actually a scientist. She has a doctorate.
And what-
In neurobiology,
She's a neuroscience.
Whatever
Look it
her
up.
character is on TV is the same thing she has in real life.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yes, it is.
Neurosomethingist
It's
is what she is.
neurology and brain
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, Dennis suggested the book The Holographic Universe. Have you read that?
I have heard of it. I have not read it.
Okay. Have you read it, Dennis? Tell us if you've read it. I keep looking at my phone. Sorry, I know the camera's over there.
It's
Right.
okay. Robin keeps looking at you and not the fifth person.
Okay.
True.
Well, he tends to look at me anyway, like while he's
yes,
preaching. So.
that's one.
I've noticed
that.
that, yeah.
It's a problem. When I'm preaching, I keep looking where she would be sitting, whether she's actually there or not.
Yeah.
So Brittany was bothered last
I
week.
know, it was hilarious.
Poor Brittany.
Oh,
Why do you
well.
keep looking at me?
Yes.
Because you're in the wrong seat.
Hmm?
Because of ninjas.
Yeah.
It works.
Yes.
Neuroscientist.
Neuroscientist.
Yeah. And she also played Blossom when she was a child. She also was the younger version of Bette Midler in Beaches.
That's right.
Super good 80s movie, tearjerker as were all 80s movies. That and So Magnolias and all my other favorite movies from the period. So,
Oh, dear.
Terms of Endearment, which I like to call Tears of Internment.
Mhm.
Ferris
So-
Bueller's Day Off.
Not so
Not
much.
sad. Very funny.
Mm.
Oh, Dennis has read it.
Okay.
It blows your mind. Okay, so is there anything you want to share about it with us? I'll be happy to read it.
Well, the idea of the book is that the universe is a holographic simulation,
Oh,
essentially.
okay.
And of course, that book is not alone in positing that, although there's no evidence yet that that's the case.
Mhm.
And actually, there's some evidence suggesting that it's not, that actually that this is real, we're not in a simulation.
Okay.
But there are some well-known people that think that, or continue to think that it remains a possibility, like Elon Musk is an
Mhm.
example of a person who has argued that perhaps it could be in a simulation.
He said something about a certain percentage chance
Yeah,
of it being.
and it's a fairly
simulation.
high chance. That is, given where computer technology is now and what we can project forward, there's no reason to think that we wouldn't be able to create a simulation that would seem as real life. And so the question then arises, are we already in a simulation?
Mhm.
Did somebody already do this and we just think that we're,
So like a holodeck kind of thing?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
yeah,
Or like
Multi-
the 13th floor.
uh-huh.
So Dennis said multi-dimensional quantum physics.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm lost at the quantum part.
Mhm.
I'm
Quantum is weird anyway, because it's not part of our day-to-day experience.
Mhm.
That is, the way things behave on the quantum level is outside what we're used to. And so we don't have the ability to really conceptualize it too well.
I kind of dropped out of math and science when I found out there were irrational numbers. I thought that, and imaginary numbers. I was like, what? I'm having enough trouble with what I've got, and now there's imaginary ones and irrational ones. I don't need
I
anything
did
more
okay
That's
irrational.
kind of where I did.
I did okay
Yeah.
with the imaginary ones. It was the day that my teacher proved 1 = 2 that I was like,
Okay, so
Well-
this is where my math skills started to decline. Junior high math, Mrs. Bloom, 3A = 6. And I'm like, those are letters. They belong in my English class, not in my math class. So she
It
very
could be a
calmly
square
explained
if
to
you
me
want.
what a variable was, and I still was not happy about it. So,
It's just a placeholder.
Yes.
I know.
This
I
is why you
get
teach
it now.
3rd grade.
Yes,
Seventh.
because
So
we
she
use
doesn't have
squares.
to do it.
Although they do throw letters at them.
Hmm.
So we have to teach them what a variable is, which
Okay.
is 3rd graders like, I don't understand how to, add a to a 2.
Okay, so how do we
So-
go about making sense of reality and figuring out reality then? What are the tools that we use to do that?
Oh,
5
Dennis-
senses.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
yeah, our 5 senses, right? Actually, there's more than that, but the 5 senses that we normally think about:
Right.
Direct observation,
direct
testing.
observation and testing. Now, what's the term used to describe direct observation and testing? What's a phrase?
Science.
Well, the
Scientific
method.
method. Yeah, okay.
Scientific method. Science is, you could say to some extent, it's like the result of the scientific method. One of the mistakes people will make when they talk about science is they act like science is an authority figure.
Mhm.
And that's not really what it is. Science is a method. It's a way of trying to arrive at the truth. And we do that by testing things. And essentially what you want to do is try to falsify what it is that you are hypothesizing or theorizing. If you can't falsify it, then that gives you greater confidence than that this is right. But you rarely arrive at 100% certainty on anything.
Well, it's kind of like what doctors do. They figure out what's not wrong with you, and what's
Uh-huh.
left over is probably what's
That's probably
wrong with
what's
you.
wrong with you.
Yeah.
Well, and then you can also discover the limits of science
Right.
through things that you just find are unfalsifiable.
Mhm.
Well,
it's just sometimes it's because we don't have the equipment yet to be able to falsify it. Other times it looks like that it's probably not really a scientific theory to begin with.
yeah.
Like when we start thinking in terms, well, the concept of multiverse is probably not actually, it's more philosophy than it is, and metaphysics than it is science, because it's hard to conceive of a way you could actually test it.
Is that multiple universe?
Uh-huh.
Like
The idea of
every
multiple-
choice that I make, both choices happen,
It is. Everett,
and I just follow one of those paths.
yeah, Everett back in 1955 came up with the idea of this is one of the possible ways of interpreting quantum physics.
Mhm.
Because with quantum physics, you have, I think there's about 9 at least different interpretations of it.
Mhm.
Copenhagen interpretation was one of the first. And that was the idea that when you make the observation, the wavefront collapses, and then you see what the way things are. You have the Schrodinger's box thought
the cat.
experiment. Right. That until you make the observation, you don't know whether or not the cat's alive or dead. And so it exists kind of in a never world of both.
Except you hear it meowing and scratching.
Right.
So you're like reasonably sure
It's a thought
alive for
experiment.
now.
It's a thought experiment. Whatever it suggested is that the wavefront never collapses. It just, all possibilities actually occur. And when you make your observation, you're just finding out which of those possibilities is the universe that you're in.
Mhm.
But all the others have happened. It's just you're not in those universes. And from a mathematical standpoint, there's nothing against it, but again, it's very hard to demonstrate any of these possibilities. That is, quantum physics works, and our modern electronics depend on it working, but we don't fully, which of the different interpretations is the right one is a bit of a question. String theory has the problem too, is that there's no
What
testable.
Dennis mentioned.
Yeah. String theory, if you watch the Big Bang Theory, you see that Sheldon became disenchanted with the whole thing because there was no way of doing an experiment that could demonstrate whether or not it was true. And so it became, and certain prediction, there's just no real good predictions from it. And so it becomes useless. If it doesn't predict anything, then what good is it? So,
Well, and on a less technical scale than quantum physics,
mhm,
you know, you hear a lot of internet crackpots
mhm,
saying things,
yes.
and there's no way to falsify.
Well, actually,
what they say.
crackpots you can falsify. The problem with crackpots is the amount of effort that's required. For instance, a few years ago, I did a book review of a book written by Zechariah Sitchin, and he died, I think, in 2013. And he had some very odd notions about the way the solar system was put together and the history and that sort of thing. And I remember reading in this book of his that I reviewed, I think it was called Genesis, what's it, Genesis something? Anyway, he made the comment that, you know, since the original publication of one of his books, nobody in the 20 years since it come out had refuted it yet. And the reason nobody had refuted it is simply because it was crackpot.
Mhm.
And if you know ancient Near Eastern history,
Mhm.
and if you can actually read Sumerian and Akkadian, you know that what he's saying simply isn't so. And
There's
people,
only one person in this room that can do all
Yeah,
that.
and how
We'll
many
take your
people
word
in
for
this
it.
world can do that?
well, that's the thing. But those of us that can do it, it's so obviously wrong.
Mhm.
That it's not even worth your
It's like
effort.
somebody trying to tell you that the sky is purple with pink polka dots. You know it's
Mhm.
not so. Why do I have to bother refuting it?
Mhm.
The problem is most people can't read the stuff to know that he's wrong.
Mhm.
But to refute him is going to take a lot of time and effort that you could be, as an expert, devoting yourself to other things. You're a lot more interesting than dealing with some moron that doesn't know what he's talking about.
And this is time for a Friends reference. Phoebe had written several books, and being the only one that had ever read the books that she wrote, she says that she has to say they were very well received. So everyone that read them loved her books.
Yeah, so Sitchin made a good living during his life writing these nonsensical books that were very popular, but they were complete bunk.
Mhm.
And I really ripped the book. I decided to spend enough time to rip apart that particular book because his reading of the Sumerian and Akkadian texts were simply wrong.
Mhm.
What he was saying the words meant, that's not what they meant, and so on. The history, everything about it was wrong. And it was easy enough to refute, but it takes time. The other problem with refuting something is it'll never be as popular as the original book.
Mhm.
That is, von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods, very popular book. The books that refuted it, who's ever heard of them?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and then you get ideas out there like the anti-vax thing and all that,
Mhm.
where
Well, in those cases, you're dealing with things that are dangerous, and so you have
Right.
to refute them. There are certain crackpot ideas that you can't just let float around.
but the thing is that people that buy into it, though, like, okay, so my mom recommended that I watch this particular thing on Netflix called The Root Problem, and the theory is that cancer and these autoimmune diseases are caused by root canals.
Mhm.
And well, I read two of the articles, and one of my mom's friends keeps wanting everybody to watch this movie because, oh my gosh, this is what causes cancer. So, so I'm listening
I'm
to
good
it.
for that. I've had
Yes.
2 root canals.
Well, and then they even talked about tooth extractions. I've had 6 teeth extracted. I'm really in trouble. And I have bridge work where they mutilated 2 of my teeth to hold the bridge work in. So I'm pretty much screwed. But I'm like pretty healthy as it goes for someone with so much dental work having been done. But anyway, so I listened to this thing. It was on Netflix, but I just listened to it on my drive home because it wasn't something where I could like watch. And I don't watch things while I drive, for all the cops out there. Anyway, I listened to it, and if you just listen to it at face value, it's like, wow, maybe they do have a point, you know. But the skeptic in me is like, this can't be right, or it would be like on the news, you know. And so like on real news, not you know,
A Netflix show.
right, not a Netflix show, right. So anyway, so when I got home, I said to him, I said, I want you to watch this thing and tell me what you think, because I think it's probably full of hot air, but it sounds on the surface of it like, okay, this could be a thing.
Mhm.
And so he just did some quick research for me, just like as soon as I walked in the door. So I hadn't had time to sit down and research it. Found 3 really good articles, one from UCLA School of Dentistry. Another one was another reputable source. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, and basically they were talking about, the one article talked about how the 3 doctors, scientists that they mentioned in there they're all not credible.
Yeah, one was from 100 years ago. So
Right.
gives
So
you your first clue that it
Yeah.
might not be accurate.
it's not up to date. Yeah.
It's not up to date.
And anyway, and then just talked about the actual science of it, which actually they know if you have poor dental hygiene, that you are going to have more health problems than someone who has good dental hygiene. So the fact that you've had a tooth extracted, it's not the fault of the extraction or the root canal, it's the fault of the infection you had there to begin with, which the root canal, the extraction has been designed to take care of. So anyway, so it was quite interesting. But I had messaged my mom back with the link. I only sent her the one link because she's not great at texting. So I knew if I sent her both, she'd be like, what are you sending this to me for?
Mhm.
But I said, I listened to that Netflix documentary on the way home. I'm always skeptical of the one-size-fits-all answers to complex issues like cancer, autism, etc. When I got home, I asked Robin to watch it and tell me what he thought. He cut right to researching it. I'm reading the articles, then passing, wait a minute, I had to go to the other window and now it went away. I read the articles and then I'm passing them along to you. You can share them with your friend, although she's unlikely to change her mind. You can be the voice of reason in her campaign to perpetuate flimsy, at best, science. So people that read those things or watch those things, they're convinced in their own mind based on this one source,
Mhm.
and it's very hard to change them. I mean, we're seeing that now with all the measles outbreaks in Portland and in Washington State. You know, children are going to die because parents we can't get them back to the correct side of the vaccination issue because one doctor said something, and has been long discredited many times and by many people, but they are sure this is the thing that causes autism, and so they're going to hang on to that to the bitter end, and in the meantime people are dying.
Well, and that's kind of what I mean by unfalsifiable, is that you get somebody who says, you know, these things cause cancer, and you say, well, you know, there's no real, or these things called these vaccines cause autism. Well, there's no credible evidence that says that. Oh, well, there was this one doctor that said this. Okay, well, you know, that doctor, his study was retracted, and you know, the people that published it wrote a rebuttal saying that this was, you know,
and he had financial incentive to do what he did.
You know, and so they say, oh, well, that was just big pharma. Big after him. You know, and it gets into this thing where it's literally impossible to come up with another answer. You know, it's like I said, it's unfalsifiable.
Right. It's falsifiable. It's just the person isn't willing to allow it to be falsified.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem is that people, my experience with dealing with crackpot ideas is that crackpots are not usually amenable to refutation. Is you can give evidence against their position, which will be helpful for the people that haven't completely bought into it. Yeah. But it's not going to change the people that have bought into it. They're pretty much lost cause.
Convinced against their will, they're of the same opinion.
Yeah, it simply won't change no matter how much evidence you marshal against it, to some extent, because they believe the conspiracy theory. The fact that you're opposing their viewpoint means you're part of that conspiracy.
Right.
So you're the enemy, so why should I listen to you? So it becomes, there's nothing you can do
There's
to
literally no
and
way
they tend to become very abusive too. That's the other thing I've noticed with I've dealt with 2 crackpot areas. One extremely dangerous, one just annoying. Extremely dangerous are anti-Semites. In dealing with anti-Semites, I find that being nice to them, trying to be reasonable and rational, big mistake, because they just become nastier and nastier the nicer you are to them. Plus, again, there's nothing you can do to change their point of view. And so I've gotten to the place now, I don't get them very often anymore. I used to get a lot. emails from anti-Semites, and I just blast them. I'm not even nice about it because there's no point in being nice. The other group that is virtually impossible to deal with are the KJV only people. They're a crackpot as well. And again, the evidence is not useful.
King James Version only.
Yeah, they believe that only the King James Version is an acceptable translation. It's completely weird. But anyway, but you can't reason with them. There's nothing you can do. The inoculation against getting sucked into conspiracy theories or getting sucked into crackpot
Are you suggesting
things.
we get vaccinated?
Well, the vaccination, essentially, the vaccination against it is the scientific method. That is learning how to think carefully and how to do research.
And using logic and critical thinking.
Right.
You know, is this causation or is it
Correlation.
just correlation?
Yeah,
Right.
just correlation does not imply causation.
Yeah, it's clearly there's a correlation, but that doesn't, like you said, doesn't mean there's
Yeah, in fact, you
cause.
can find, I forget what the website is, where they correlate things that obviously have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, the one guy
It's
in
funny to watch.
the one guy in the one article, the author said, he said, this is akin to saying all people who have cancer have drunk water. It's like, or like all the people in the Civil War ate pickles, and now look, they're all
Yeah,
dead.
pickles are bad for you.
Yes.
They have force-fed pickle relish to rats, and they lose their appetite.
I can see why.
All Civil War soldiers ate pickles. They're all dead.
Well, it's like that thing, you should only eat things that you can pronounce. Well, I can pronounce arsenic, so it's hard to pronounce
Hydrogen monoxide. Yes.
See? So I should not have any dihydrogen monoxide, but I should have lots and lots of arsenic because it's super easy to say.
The other thing I think that you need to have is an unwillingness to believe in these monolithic, deep state, conspiracy of, shadowy figures somewhere in the background.
Yeah. I
I
mean, Watergate was a conspiracy. Look how long it lasted.
Yeah.
There's always a rat that's willing to come out and go, I know all the secrets.
Yeah.
See, one of the key rules of thumb, and this is a really difficult thing to get used to doing, is to be as skeptical about what you believe as you would be against those that are attacking what you believe. For instance, I will get repeatedly from people that, they have found chariot wheels in the Red Sea left over from the Egyptians that crossed the Red Sea.
That's logical, but
That's not the case, though.
they would have
And
rotted.
There
Yeah.
would, but even so, this is something, the story has been percolating and reappearing every few years for the last 20 years. And it wasn't true 20 years ago, it's not true now. But you need to be as skeptical about that sort of thing. That is, you believe the Israelites crossed the Red Sea. And so you hear, they have found something that demonstrates that. You should be extremely skeptical of that.
Well, especially considering that there would.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they found Noah's Ark. Probably
Yeah,
not.
probably not.
So, but you need to have a habit of being very skeptical of anything that convert. Like if you read something on the net that some politician that you really dislike heavily, they've been caught doing this horrible thing.
Yay.
Yeah, that's the way we react. And so you repost it, and it never happened.
Yeah.
Well, that's why even with missing children, I will always research it first, because sometimes it's old, and just by opening the article, you can see what the year is on it. And then if that person was found dead or whatever, then that poor family has to see that reposted over and over and over again, that their loved one is missing when they're in fact dead. And so it brings all that emotion back to them. And so it's really, people just need to be, people used to post things, I research it, and then people post things, say, Ruth, will you research this for me? It's like, just Google the important words, missing Joe Blow, Arkansas, 1982. And it'll tell you what happened to Joe Blow in Arkansas in 1982. It'll let you know if they found him, if he was dead, he was alive, what happened to him. That's all you got to do. Just they're called keywords.
Well, and especially with the missing child thing, sometimes the there is a custody battle,
Uh-huh.
and the person who's putting out the missing child thing is a spouse who has
Lost.
lost their parental rights.
Right.
You have to be super careful
Yeah.
about stuff like that.
Right.
And if it's even if it's a real thing that's been solved, now you're just taking away from resources from legitimate people who are missing that need to be found.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always research. I research it. It's so easy now, thanks to
Yes.
Google.
The other thing, when you research, make sure that you research from several different points of view also.
Yeah.
A book that I read many years ago by Larry Burkett, The Coming Economic Earthquake, came out in 1999. One of the worst books I've ever read in my life. Absolutely horrible. He made errors of fact that if he had even bothered to look in the encyclopedia, he could have avoided. The problem is, if you looked at the bibliography, which was exceptionally short in the book, every single source that he used was coming from the exact same point of view, and they tended to quote from each other.
Yeah.
Avoid doing that. As if you're looking up something, look at it from several different political and economic and theological points of view. Don't just focus on just one source.
Right.
As if you're conservative in your orientation, make sure you also read liberal publications. If you're liberal, also read conservative publications and read everything in between. Have a wide range of things that you're looking at.
Well, I watched the Democratic National Convention on Fox News, and I watched the Republican Convention on CNN. I figured that was the way to get the most balanced political view of it. So,
There's also something to keep in mind.
oh, my friend Kim says thank you for doing this. So,
There's also something to keep in mind with conspiracy theories is, you get there was stuff during the George W. era. People were saying, all these guys are trying to control the world. They're going and doing this for oil and all this stuff. And there's this vast conspiracy, and it's far-reaching. And they're trying to get into our homes, and they're trying to get into our schools, and they've already got stuff in our water. I swear to God, they actually said that they were putting stuff in our water.
chemtrails from the airplanes.
Yeah.
They're poisoning us. Why? Why are they poisoning us? They're poisoning their own families too. The government can't get its act together to decide on a wall or not. How are they doing all this other stuff?
Right.
So successfully.
The government can barely get its
Have you
act
actually
together
been to
to
the
do some,
DMV?
Yeah, I know, right?
can do this stuff.
Sorry, anybody that works at the
And yet, there's this deep conspiracy. And then you got to ask yourself, if they were so good at putting up this conspiracy, if they got thousands of people to act as one without a single person going rogue, without a single person slipping up, without a single person discovering, finding this out, and they've done all this, and you can Google this and find out what's going on, you should probably be pretty skeptical of the conspiracy.
Yes.
If it's supposed to be this grand thing and you can find it out with 5 minutes of internet research,
Right.
It's probably not.
It's probably not there.
My mom said to me, one of her chemo appointments, she made the comment, she's like, and I don't usually say bad words in front of my mom, but because she's very sensitive, but she says, well, I heard that they make too much money off of cancer, and so there's never going to be, there may be a cure for cancer, but we'll never hear about it because they make too much money off it. I'm like, really, you believe that bullshit? And she looked at me. I'm like, that's exactly what it is. I'm like, oh, the poor polio people are out of business now. Or mostly out of business.
Iron lung manufacturers.
Iron lung manufacturers. Yeah, they're homeless. Most of our homeless are made up of iron lung manufacturers and smallpox vaccine people.
Yes.
So yeah, it was a horrible economic failure. So that whole thing about it was funny because they had that thing out of Israel that they think that they've found the way to really
maybe
right
I'm skeptical of that.
Okay, but anyway, that they could within about a year have a way of really defeating cancer. And then somebody, it was like I was looking for the like 5 comments down. Yeah, but we'll never hear about it.
Yeah. We just did.
I
We
know,
just
right?
We just did, and if it's true, they win Nobel Prizes and make a boatload of money.
Yeah, so yay them, and we won't have cancer. And basically what it is, and it seems really feasible actually, is to attack cancer the way that AIDS was attacked, because they were finding that people with AIDS, they would give them a drug and then give them the next drug and give them the next drug, but they were still dying. But when they put it together in a cocktail, that people were surviving, and they still live with HIV, but they're not dying of AIDS anymore. And so that's kind of what they're looking at with the cancer thing, is that we'll come at it with a few different things, and I don't know what all it was, because it was a bunch of sciencey talk. But anyway, so it was quite interesting. But
Okay, well,
so my friend Kim said, I heard all of these rumors. My son at Eastside High last year said his teacher told him those chips in your credit card are spy chips. So, really, all they're interested in, like,
selling you stuff.
is selling you stuff. That's the same thing with Facebook and Google. Like you know, I've had friends say, educated people say, I swear I was not on the computer, and I just said in my house that it would be nice to buy new curtains for the windows, and all of a sudden Google and Facebook and everything is showing me things for curtains for windows, and somebody's listening in through my Alexa or whatever. I'm like, just because they want to sell you stuff, they don't really care about your windows and your curtains. They just
want to show you ads that you're actually interested in. And actually, I'd rather get ads I'm interested in rather than tampon samples in the mail.
Which used to happen when we were dating. He would get tampon samples in the mail, and he'd hand them to me.
Yeah.
So,
that's my name.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's all about making money and sales and stuff. So, and you know what? If they are spying on me, that's fine. Like, we have that camera for Xbox.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, they can watch you through your camera. It's like, because sometimes I get dressed in my living room because he's asleep and it's dark. And so I take my clothes out into the living room. That way things match and I'm not wearing my shirts inside out. And so if you want to see this on my Xbox camera, knock yourself out, because
there's 7 billion people on the planet. Why would they be taking an interest in you?
exactly. That's a little egocentric to think that they're really spying. Well, we're really coming down to the end.
Yes,
it's 5:07.
Out of time.
Well, what's the topic for next week?
Next topic will be the church and mental illness.
And ninjas.
And ninjas will be
Ninjas
included
will
in
always
everything.
be.
Yes, we'll always mention ninjas. One of the things I think we need to make a topic is Occam's razor, because that popped into my head while we were talking.
Yes.
So we can put that somewhere on the list. But I want to talk about the mental illness thing.
Yeah, well, I do
That
have the church.
actually might
The
fit
church
in
and
next week.
it might. The church and philosophy is one of the topics that I have listed out as a future topic.
Okay.
So Occam would fit into that too.
Okay.
So we'll see. Whenever he shows up, he'll show up.
Those of you that are with us still, we do this about 4 o'clock on Saturdays, depending on, like today we did a little set change and we're getting some new equipment. So roughly around 4 o'clock. We're hoping to simulcast next week on YouTube Live and on Facebook. If you missed any portion of this video or you didn't see episode 1, it's all on YouTube. The name of the channel is A Mirror Darkly, Unbridled Inquiry, same name as the name of the show. And you can see what we talked about last week. And
it's also on Facebook.
Yeah, so we hope you'll join us. And if you can't make it, it will always be posted on YouTube on our channel after. So just another plug that A Mirror Darkly, Unbridled Inquiry is brought to you by Quartz Hill School of Theology. You can find us online at theology.edu. Classes are offered online as well as in person. All of us here are members of Quartz Hill Community Church, which is a local body of believers who believe in loving God and loving people. We're located at 51st Street West and Avenue K in Quartz Hill, California. We have morning worship every Sunday morning, including tomorrow, beginning at 11 a.m. We combine traditional as well as contemporary worship with Bible-centered teaching. We have Sunday school for all ages, which starts at 10. And on Wednesdays, we have dinner and prayer meetings. So if you're curious about our church, we have a Facebook page with the same name, Quartz Hill Community Church. And our website is littlebluechurch.org. So anyway, so we'll see you guys next Saturday.
Lord willing.
And the creek don't rise.
Yeah.
You tried this week.
Yeah.